Welcome to the What is Your Legacy podcast. In each episode, we invite leaders, entrepreneurs, innovators, and community champions to share their story of their journey. Covering the fields of sport, business, community, entertainment, politics, and philanthropy, we allow our guests to speak openly and share the ups and downs of their journey, and all of the things in between. My name's Trevor Worth, founder and chief executive of Portcullis Legals, and I hope you enjoy what we always call conversations worth having. Our guest today is Mark Ormrod, MBE. I've known Mark a little while now, and to say he's an inspiration is not doing it justice. Lots of podcasts that Mark has done over the last few years have covered, obviously, the moment the device went off and changed his life forever. And I'm not going to talk about that because there's lots of that out there. We're just going to talk in some rambling way about all sorts of things and listen to what the man's got to say for himself. Mark, welcome to our Portcullis Legacy studio.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. I know you've done lots of these already.
Yeah.
As part of your career now and your direction you're in.
Yeah.
And I know you on several levels, you know. First of all, as a friend, as a client. And I know, I've not said this to you before, you are an inspiration. You hear that from a lot of people, I guess. You know?
Thank you.
You really are. And you're like a real face of Plymouth, which, I'm proud of because it's our city, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
People describe you in lots of ways in athlete,
Okay.
author,
Yeah.
ambassador,
Yeah.
mentor, inspiration, Royal Marine.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots in there, isn't there? So much we can talk about.
Yes.
How do you see yourself?
Do you know what? So when I've just come back from, I think 7 days back to back of seminars and courses and trainings, and a lot of it is around business and the entrepreneur world. And so you get asked that question all the time, hi, who are you, what do you do? And I still now don't know how to answer that question because I do so many different things like speaking, investing, consulting, brand collaboration. I mean, I just guess it all comes under entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I'll say now because it's just so vast and it's different and it changes all the time. I spend about 40 minutes trying to explain to people what it is I actually do for a living. So I think entrepreneur covers it all. That'll do.
That's interesting because that is quite a blanket description, isn't it? And
Yeah.
you're right. I think lots of entrepreneurs do lots of different things, don't they? And they don't always get pigeonholed in certain roles. I mean, we still lecture a lot with entrepreneurial students, and they try and describe themselves as entrepreneurs. And when you try and define what that is, there's always a dictionary definition, but it's a mix of everything, isn't it? And
I think I would just say it's someone who figures out how to make a living doing things. I was going to say that they love, but I don't think that's necessary. It's desirable. If you can do what you love and make money, then you've won, in my opinion. But yeah, just somebody who figures out a way outside of the matrix and the traditional way of making an income to make an income and live.
Yeah.
Live.
It's funny you mentioned the Matrix. I saw you put a post the other day that you'd never seen the Matrix.
No. Well, on these courses that I went on, all the speakers and all the people, they kept on talking about it, and I'm obviously aware of it, and then I was like, right, I've got to go watch it because they're making all these references, and I kind of know what they mean, but not 100%. And the film came out in '99, right? So I was just coming up to the end of school then, and I discovered beer. Do you know what I mean? As a 50s, yeah. So I wasn't really into it, but I went and watched it, and I think I'm glad I watched it now because it would have been lost on me back then. What I think is the hidden message and what the Matrix is.
Yeah.
And I actually watched the third one the other night, and I got the fourth one, the new one booked for tonight.
Have you?
So yeah,
I've never seen the fourth one, but
no, I haven't. I've just watched them all. And
do you think it looks quite dated now, or is it still really relevant in its message? And
I think it's more relevant now than ever. I wouldn't have. Everyone was saying when they were all talking, right? They were like, "Oh yeah, it's about the government. It's about this and that and the other." And I was like, "I wonder what they mean." So when I went and watched it. And obviously you know what it's about, right? You can take the blue pill to stay where you are, the red pill to escape the real world, which is portrayed in the movie as boring and mundane and working a 9 to 5 and paying your taxes and doing what you're supposed to do. Or you go into the real world, which is where you can be as much as you want to be, your mind is no limits and you can create what you want to create. And I just thought, wow, that's actually really powerful, like the message. And it would have been lost on me in '99 when it came out. So I'm glad I watched it now.
Yeah.
That I'm a little bit older and a little bit wiser and have experienced the world. But yeah, I just when I watched it with that hat on, it was quite fascinating.
Yeah, it's a good series, or franchise they call it, don't they? And it was of its time, but like you said, it's still got relevance now. Which is important. And you said when you were at school, you would have watched it then if you had watched it.
It's 99.
So tell us about your school life and where you grew up and all the rest of it, because you're a Janner like me, aren't you?
I am a born and bred Janner. So for those Janners listening, you may be familiar with the rough streets of Pennycombe-Quick.
Oh.
That's where I grew up. Holdreth Street, Pennycombe-Quick, right by the train station. Went to Hyde Park Infant School, Hyde Park Junior School, and then Stoke Damerel Community College.
Right.
So
you there till you were 16? Yeah, that's...
Yeah, I left school at 16.
Yeah.
And went straight into the military because all the guys that I grew up with, they were older than I was. A lot of us went to the same schools, but they were all slightly older than me. So by the time I was getting to the end of school, they had already left and started their new jobs, careers, or gone to college, university, that kind of thing. And I think I had at least one friend in each branch of the military. So when I got to about 15 and a half, 16, when The Matrix came out, I knew I had these decisions to make about what I wanted to do in my life. And so I just kind of looked around a little bit at my mates and what they were doing. And you had, I guess you call it career guidance or whatever it is at school, where you speak to some teachers. Yeah. The internet was a thing then, dial up. So you got online and spent 16 days waiting for a website to load so you could do
I'm going to stop you there. That makes me feel really old. The internet was a thing.
So looked around at options and all that kind of stuff, and I don't know what they were doing, and the stories they had and what they told me when they came on leave just kind of appealed to me.
Yeah.
And then because the internet was a thing now, you could do a little bit of research and find out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And
so it was more, I guess, like your peers that were influencing you there, rather than, I don't know if your family were in the military before or anything like that.
So it was my peers, combined with the fact that I was obsessed with action movies, Commando, Predator, and all these things. Like a lot of us were growing up in the 80s and 90s. You think you're a big, tough action hero, and then I think combined with what they were telling me, and they come back with their photographs and their uniforms and stuff, and it kind of just felt right for me when I sat there at home on my own at night, just kind of contemplating what to do. That just felt like the path that excited me.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know if I had any family in the military. My direct family weren't. And I actually went to the career centre when it was down at Mount Wise with my friend in the army to get the paperwork for the army. But because of my age, I think I was 15 and a half, so I couldn't apply without my parents signing the paperwork. So I took it home to get it signed, and then my dad told me that I had an uncle who was in the Royal Marines. I didn't even know who they were.
Right.
And he lived at Buckfastleigh, so not far from here, about 25 minutes, 30 minutes. So we went up to see him one weekend, and he had joined as a Marine, which is our equivalent of a private. He had done his entire 22-year career and left as a captain.
Wow.
Yeah, so he commissioned and left as a captain, and he told me all about his career and his life and his experiences and travel and training and all this kind of stuff, which really excited me. And so I went back to the career centre the following week and then spoke to the Royal Marine recruiter. And I'm going to, based on the conversations we've had today, I think we're both going to go on feeling very, very old. Because I remember
me more than you.
Mate, I remember going down there and the guy put in a VHS cassette in the TV video combi.
Right. Blimey.
Yeah, it's a VHS
That's like an antique,
cassette.
no?
I know. But the video blew me away. I just remember seeing these guys, steaming up to beaches and landing craft and running up the sand and patrolling through the jungle with water up to their chests. In Norway in the Arctic with skis and these huge packs on, and I'm like, who the hell are these guys? Skydiving, fast roping, all this stuff. And I was like, because I'd watched all these films and was obsessed with these films as a kid, I was like, damn, they're like action movie stars, and I think I want to try that.
Yeah.
So I took the paperwork home, got it signed, sent it off. Hadn't quite finished school yet, so I went back and did my GCSEs. Did pretty well. I got 1A, 2 Bs, couple Cs and a D.
Fantastic.
So, could have went on to college, potentially university, but
So what do you think you would have done if you hadn't gone down the military road? What things really sort of
Nothing.
floated your boat? Nothing
Not
at
a
all.
thing.
There's nothing. No?
Like
sport
zero.
or business or no.
No, I was no good at sport. I was quite overweight at school, and I was an amateur kickboxer and Muay Thai, but I couldn't see it as a career. Like the anxiety that used to rack my body the week before a fight, I just thought there's no way I'd do that for a living.
Right.
Like living in that kind of state. So none of that really appealed to me. And we were talking earlier. I did go on to the sixth form for a little bit doing GMVQ Advanced Business Studies, but quit within about 4 months because I was just reading a book. Then your basic premise of the course was rewrite what you've read, but not verbatim, change it a little bit. And I did that for a couple of months.
Oh, no.
Thought, you know what? This is not really floating my boat.
No.
I won't mind running a business, but if this is what it's like, nah, it's not for me.
Too dry, isn't it? I mean, where's the passion there? There's nothing, is it? It's just...
No. So me and my mate quit. We both quit about 4 months in and decided to join the Marines.
And he joined the Marines as well? Or?
He didn't initially. He had a car accident, broke his neck, and had to have one of those metal halos put on where he was drilled into the forehead and the back of his head. So, I went on without him. But he did go after and actually texted me last night, inviting me to what's called his top table, which is like you're dining out at the end of your career. So he's done 22 and a half years as a WO2 warrant officer.
With lots of port. They passed the port,
Well,
don't they?
there is. I don't drink now, so I'll have to try somehow to avoid that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that time's flown by.
Yeah,
22 and a half. Last November would have been my career done, 22 years, Joined in February 2001, finished training in November 2001.
Okay.
So,
And the world has changed a lot since February 2001, obviously.
It has.
9/11 at the start of that, isn't it? And obviously everything that's going on now. I mean, as a ex-military man, how do you see things in terms of the global view now? Because to me, as a layperson, it feels very volatile, uncertain, or has that always gone on? We just didn't hear a lot of it.
But you know what? I have this conversation with myself back and forth a lot. There is a lot going on, and it does feel quite dark and quite scary at the minute. But I think that too. I'm like, is this the way the world's always been? But because we didn't have social media back then, you had 4 TV channels to choose from. Did you not see it as much, or were you just, not distracted, but focused on other things like your job, career, school, whatever it was? I don't know, but it's not. It doesn't feel nice right now, and it's what's scary is when you look at the military getting cut, the Met Police. I think I saw a story the other day saying they hit 4% of their recruiting target.
Oh my goodness!
So they're not doing great either.
No.
And so the security within the country feels like it's lacking, and that's quite scary.
Yeah. It feels a different.
It's volatile.
Place. Yeah.
It feels volatile to me.
I don't know if you see as well with lots, particularly younger people, where there's lots of anxiety, and I think we've always had that as individuals. For our future, are we good enough, fast enough, all that sort of stuff as a person. But there seems to be more anxiety about their futures and what's going on, and that's certainly what I hear.
It's strange, isn't it? I mean, the one thing that I think is great about the world we live in now is it annoys me, but at the same time fascinates me, and I'm happy for them. But like, you could make so much money just being a YouTuber, if that's your thing. If that's what you're passionate about, then you can do that. I think that's great because, back when we were at school, you might have had the kid that was labelled as disruptive or troubled, who got kicked out of the class, but I guess they didn't understand the way their mind worked back then. Maybe they didn't like being sat in a class, and that wasn't how they learned. They like to be active and out and doing it. Give them a camera, give them something to do, and they can do that. You don't have to go through all the channels you used to. Like I said, you had 4 channels, so maybe if you wanted to be a documentary maker, you had to do it the hard way, knocking on the TV station. Now you just go on YouTube, do it yourself. If you're good enough, you blow up and you make 10 times what they make.
Yeah.
So there's opportunities in that way. But I guess, in other ways, the opportunities are limited. I don't know. Yeah. I've got to deal with all this with my 2 younger kids.
Of course.
Yeah. My elder one's off thriving, running her own business. The other 2 are 10 and 12. So, before I know it, they'll be coming to the end of school, trying to figure this out as well.
They will, won't they?
You need to be proactive, I think.
Yeah. It's like you said there, though, that one of the key things is like the mindset of it all, isn't it? If you feel you've got the ability to get it out there into the marketplace, particularly online, and you blow up, that's amazing, you know. And it's opportunities there for people who wouldn't have had those openings before. So they're embracing that, which is good to see. But you know, you said at the start about being an entrepreneur. That is all about mindset, and it's you know, you've evidenced that throughout, you know, all your challenges you've had. And you know, how do we get that sort of resilience into younger people or anyone really, I suppose, if they've had setbacks, you know, like you've had? Because what was the moment where you woke up one day and thought, right, I've had enough of this, I'm going to push on and do all the things I want to do? Because there must have been some moment.
I think I've always, so if you go back to when I was a kid, right, you know, I mentioned earlier that I was overweight as a kid. I had this incident happen at school where someone was pretty rude to me, like, who I thought was a friend, and it was shocking them, and they were talking about my weight. And I took myself to the school gym and I started training myself, because again, when we were kids, the internet didn't exist. You had to save up your pocket money, buy a magazine at the end of the month, and I had to teach myself about fitness. Yeah. No one went in this gym at my school. I could go in there at lunchtime and lock it and just figure stuff out for myself.
This was still Damron.
Yeah. And that kind of led me on to martial arts. And because of my natural frame, I was, when it came to competing, I was a heavyweight. So like even at 15 years old, I was fighting 30-year-old men. So it was adversity from a young age.
Yeah.
And I had 11 fights. I think I won 10, lost 1. But it was always against someone bigger, stronger, older. And, you know, when you're a kid, for me anyway, that was a big factor. If someone's older than me, I automatically got scared. I'm like, oh, they're bigger, that means they're going to be stronger and they're going to pummel me. And so I didn't really know it then, but, you know, you're facing adversity and, you know, getting a battering and, you know, still winning, but developing resilience along the way. Then you go to Royal Marines training. I was 17, and that was just horrible. It was like drowning for a year, just trying to keep above water and figure stuff out, and the pace is so fast, but you develop resilience there. Yeah. And then you go, you know, I went to Iraq at 19. That was quite an eye-opener for someone who was still a boy.
Yeah. And
then lost my legs and arm at 24, you know, in Afghanistan. So even though I didn't know it, from the age of about 12, I was constantly in these situations where you had to just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going and develop resilience. Yeah. And that, I mean, I get people contact me all the time about stuff like this, and that's all I'll say is like, they're like, how do you keep going out? And you just keep going. Yeah. Like, it feels crap sometimes. You know what I mean? You feel like you're wasting your time sometimes. You know, especially in business, you feel like you're just on this treadmill and you just got, and you want to stop, but then you're like, no, because I know the minute I stop is the minute that things are about to be good for me. You know what I mean? And it's just being relentless and just not stopping. And there's no other way to explain it. There's no science behind it. It's that simple. You just keep going, keep going, keep going.
That's really weird. I was speaking to a friend the other night, and I said we were going to have this chat today. And he turned it on me and he said, what words do you think describe Mark? And the 2 words I use are the 2 R's. You just used them. Relentless and resilient, you know. Yeah. And they're not bad words at all, are they? Because it's a great character sort of thing to have. I just think you're right. You know, you can look at all the problems that you've got, all the challenges, you know, whoever you are, whatever your background, whatever's happened. But it's only you that can drive it forward, isn't it? And there's got to be some little spark in there that lights it up. But I think people like you help give others that spark. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. When I'm having bad days in business, I think of you sometimes. Okay. Because, you know, everything you've been through, it can drive, you know, you think, well, the challenges I've got are nothing like you've had. And look what you're doing. You're out there in the big world doing great things, and that, you know, has to be admired. So hopefully you're feeding that through to your children as well, aren't you? Because they see you as that example.
I hope so. Yeah. I hope so. Although I am going through a phase with my son right now. He, you know, I just don't think, like, I'm up every day at 5:15. I just like being up that time. It's quite peaceful, and I like to kind of get a head start on everyone. And he wants to get up and start doing stuff. So he downloaded an alarm clock the other day.
How old is he? 12?
12.
He's 12,
and it was it was a David Goggins alarm clock, right? So it's like, get up, mother effer. And I'm like, you're not having that, mate. So we found a more appropriate one.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's got up a single day since that it's going off at 6:30. Yeah. So we had a wire this morning, actually, and he wants a pull-up bar and a punch bag. Wow. So I said, if you get up every day for the next 4 weeks from today, and he wrote out his own exercise program a couple of weeks ago. If you do that every day, even when you don't want to do it, even if you don't do, the press-ups aren't great, as long as you do them, and it doesn't matter how long it takes, at the end of 4 weeks, we'll get the pull-up bar, we'll get the punch bag, and we'll go there. So
brilliant.
We're trying to teach them without being, that, right, get out of bed, pulling the duvets off, throwing cold water on them, and opening the windows, and, I don't want to do that, but just trying to drip feed it to them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
So not that sergeant major, typical military sort of thing, it's...
No. As much as I'd love to do that, I just think they'd resent me for it in the end.
You should do it one day to see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's really weird. You've mentioned David Goggins there, and I think some of our paths are quite similar, where we've gone in terms of people we've sort of interacted with and that. And my lad reads all about David Goggins all the time, his books and what have you. And there was another guy I met last year called the Iron Cowboy.
Okay.
Out in the States, and my lad broke his leg just before Christmas, and so I was having some correspondence with him, and he just sent a video, and it was like one of those inspirational. You must do loads for people as well, and you look at some of these people who have these challenges. I think he did it was 101 Ironman back to back, which is staggering, isn't it? It's staggering. I think there's a Netflix thing coming out in that. But you guys are all of the same sort of ilk, aren't you?
I wouldn't do that.
Oh,
no, thanks.
No, it's one of them, isn't it? And the other one with David Goggins was that thing about how he had like issues you've just said. Where at school he was
overweight,
a bit like carrying too much timber and all the rest of it, and there was something that sparked off in him, and he went to join the military, and they turned him down, and then it all went from there. Navy SEAL, you know the story, which is fascinating. But it's interesting to see what triggers get people going, isn't it? And there must be rawness in all of us, where once you touch that spot, that's when we all fire up and go for it.
Do you know what one of the things that really annoys me about people is that they forget that. They'll look at someone like David Goggins, and I'm sure he's got that little bit of extra about him, but at the end of the day, he's a human being. Yeah. And so everyone can achieve what he's achieved if they have the right mindset and the right trigger. Yeah. But people just talk themselves out of stuff. It annoys the hell out of me.
They do.
Like, I think the older you get, especially now with social media, you get either directly or indirectly fed these messages of, don't kid yourself, you couldn't do that, you failed, and people laugh and they don't realise that that's just a stepping stone to succeeding, and people get beaten down and they lose their confidence, and then they just don't get it back. Like whenever I do like talks and everything, and people talk about failing and trying again, I always use the same analogy, right? And it's of being a baby. Like when you watch a baby learning to walk, right? When a baby takes its first steps, it'll fall on its ass, right? It will look at its mum or dad or someone and it will giggle. And then it'll either try again or it will come back tomorrow and try again. It doesn't just fall on its ass and go, do you know what? Walking's not for me. I failed, so I'm not going to bother, because then we'd all be crawling around the planet on our hands and knees. But babies haven't been battered by the world yet, right?
True,
to understand what
true.
failure is.
Yeah.
So they just keep going, and eventually, guess what? They walk. But somewhere along the line, that kind of gets drained out of us, and we forget that. Like, if we just kept that mindset of, all right, I didn't do it that time, I'll figure out what I did wrong, adjust my approach, and try again until I succeed, then we'd all be a lot more successful, I think. Yeah.
Good analogy, that.
Yeah, no, someone said it at a seminar I was at once, and I was like, you can't get any more basic and easy to explain than that. You know what I mean? It's literally, if a baby had a mindset of an adult, fell down the first time, it would go, meh, that's quite hard, I'm not going to do that, and just crawl around forever.
Yeah, it's very true.
It's hilarious to think of. Can you imagine everyone crawling around the office on their hands and knees in a nappy?
Yeah, I'll get rid of that image. One of the things I'd love you to talk about is Invictus, because the whole story around how that was all set up in the beginning and why you took part. And this thing I didn't realise was about you didn't really swim a lot, before.
So how it came about was in 2016. I was in my office at home. I was sat down planning out 2017 and what I wanted to achieve. And I realised that Christmas Eve 2017 was going to be 10 years since I was injured. So I wanted to do something, unique, something special that I hadn't done before. And adaptive sports was something that I'd never tried in that 10 years. And I'll be honest with you, the reason I hadn't tried it is because in my mind back then I found it quite patronising. You know, you got to imagine coming from being a 6'2", 16 stone Royal Marine, fully fit enabled, and you know, being a kickboxer, I'd boxed in the Marines, doing Muay Thai and all these things, to then playing sitting volleyball. Right. I was like, nah, it's not for me. It's not really my thing. No. And I was completely wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting, that word patronising.
That's how I found it.
Yeah, okay.
So I stayed away from it. And I still trained, I lifted weights and did what I wanted and swam and ran and all that kind of stuff, but I didn't do anything competitively. So in 2017, I wanted to do something that I hadn't done. The games were 2 years old. They had been in, I think it was London and Florida, and I'd seen people that I'd gone through rehab with go out there and compete and win medals, which was cool. Yeah. What I thought was cooler about it was because I knew them when the cameras were off, I saw what it did to their confidence and how it helped them reintegrate into their families, and it helped them, it reignited something in them to want to go out and have a new career, whereas before they were depressed and down and they didn't see a way forward. And the sport had given them something back that they had temporarily lost. So I thought, okay, right, I'm going to apply for these games, see how I do, and just tick the box. Now, because I hadn't done any sport, in my mind I had no chance of making the team, because 774 people applied. Did they? And they had 71 places. Wow. So I thought, okay, I'm not in the cliques and in the groups. They're probably going to just sideline me. But I applied anyway, went through the trial process.
Do you pick what sport you do, or they see what's relevant?
No, you pick. You go to like these trial things and you test them all.
Right. Okay.
And in fact, it was at this where I realised that my perception and my attitude was completely wrong, because I don't know if you've ever been on a Concept 2 rower for 4 minutes at full speed before.
Not full speed.
So I got to 3 minutes, I think 35 seconds, and I went blind. And I don't say that jokingly. Like, all these spots and stars started coming in front of my face, and then my vision started to decrease from the sides inwards to the point where it's probably about 15 seconds to the end. All I could see was black with my eyes open. But in my head, I was like, don't stop, Mark, don't stop, because they'll all think you're weak. And I'll just keep going. And then eventually, after I had the horn went at the 4 minute point, and then eventually my vision started to come back. And I got off the rower. I don't wear prosthetics when I row. My legs were over at the side of the gym. Right. So I bum walked over there, sat in the corner. I was obviously severely dehydrated. Yeah. And I sat there and I was like, what an idiot. Like, you thought this was just going to be easy? Like, people that were just turning up that weren't really fit. And that, I hadn't felt like that for a long time.
Was that a real wake up? Was it like, oh my...
Huge. Like, the whole drive home, I was like, what an idiot. Like, you thought these were like part-timers and wannabes, and you just got a pat on the back and told you were inspiration because you turned up and had a go. Right. Actually, these people are proper athletes. And now I need to like approach this with a proper athlete's mindset. So that's how I made the team. The first year it was rowing, hand cycling, and swimming. I went back. I was working full time during that period, so I had to go to the gym in my garage at 5 o'clock in the morning, go to work, do strength and conditioning in the evenings, and then on the weekends you had to travel around the UK, all over the place. Up as high as I think Manchester or Liverpool, to attend training camps for whatever sports you were doing. So it was relentless for like the best part of a year of just thousands of miles, thousands of hours of training. And went out to Canada in 2017 to compete.
Was that Toronto, wasn't it?
It was, Toronto? Yeah. It was awesome. It was really cool. And my goal was to do the games once, turn up there, win gold medals, and never do it again. Right. But I didn't do that the first year. I ended up with 2 silvers and 2 bronzes. And I came home. And that was, that was good, I thought.
But I was going to say, how did that make you feel? Because if you didn't get to your objectives, did that light a fire for the next one? Is that...
It was niggling away in the back of my mind, right? So I gave my friend, ex-army friend, this flag, Invictus flag with all signatures on. And the 2 silver medals and the 2 bronzes. And what he does as a as like a side job is he frames things.
Oh, right.
So he framed the flag, and if you imagine the flag's in the middle of the frame, on the left of it there was 3 square holes, and on the right of it were 3 square holes. In the middle holes, left and right, he put the silver medals. In the bottom hole, left and right, he put the bronze medals, and he left 2 empty spots at the top.
Oh, brilliant.
So I'm like, how the hell am I going to ever be able to hang that in my house without 2 gold medals in it?
That's genius.
Yeah. So I put it in my garage, put it in front of my rowing machine.
Yeah.
And then decided I was going to go for it the next year. And that was my motivation. Like, because it is freezing in my garage.
Is it?
It's a single skin garage, big double door, lots of wind gets in there. I walk around on my bum in my house because I don't have a wheelchair, so the backs of my legs and bum are freezing. So I needed something to motivate me to want to get out of bed and go down there at 5 a.m. in the dark and get on the rower and do some work, some training for an hour. So I put this frame in front of me with the empty holes in it, and that was literally like just my focus.
That's brilliant.
For like a year of just filling those holes.
Yeah. Because in layman's terms, that's like a vision board type thing, isn't it? It's all there encapsulated in that bit.
Yeah. So I went through the process again, reapplied again, was lucky enough to make the team again. This year, I think, well, that year, 2018, there were only 65 places. So even less. And more people applied, and they had less spots in the team, so it was even harder to get in. But went back that year and managed to get, I think it was 4 golds, 2 bronzes and a silver that year. 11 in total it was.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That really is, isn't it?
So it was a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
Like, trying to juggle a job and family and training and traveling and all this stuff. But it was a hell of an experience, and I got to involve my family in that experience, which was cool.
Great.
Yeah, so I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
But it was a rough couple of years.
I bet it was.
Yeah,
They said it's demands on your time, isn't it? Family time,
on everything.
And obviously, going forward, do you stay involved with it now? Is it like an ambassador or anything like that, or not really? Or is that just just for other people to step in now and do their thing? Or?
Yeah, I went out last year to Germany as an ambassador. So went and did some talks for potential sponsors and that kind of stuff to let them know about the benefits of the games to the athletes and their families. If they asked me to do that again, I probably would.
You would.
Just because I love the environment and I love what it's about. And like I said just now, when the cameras are off and the medal ceremonies are over, you see the difference it makes to people's lives. You know, it's not just about medals.
Yeah.
It's about a lot more than that. You know, it gives them a lot more than that. So yeah, if I could help to raise the profile, to encourage other people to come in, maybe mentor people, whatever it is, then absolutely I'd do that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. It's interesting because obviously the podcast is called "What Is Your Legacy," and there's the legacy there, isn't it? It's their life afterwards, what it gives back to them, you know, and that's an amazing, and it's immeasurable, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's really cool.
You know, you mentioned earlier about your legs when you said, you know, when you're on the machine, it's to the side or something. You put them to. Tell us about that incident recently in London, which went viral all around the world, didn't it?
Oh yeah.
About the car outside the Premier Inn. Bless them.
Yeah, no, I was up in London working. Went to the hotel, and I don't think I know that I was being watched as I approached the hotel because. Right. And this is the military side of me, right? So I parked in the disabled bay, and I always park as close to the entrance of a building as I can. And if there's cameras and there's a spot, then I'll park by the cameras. It's just some nerdy thing that I do. Yeah. And so I got in this disabled spot. There were 3 cameras on the wall, like 5 meters from my car. So I thought, okay, it's going to be safe. Yeah. So I went round to the back when I got there, opened the boot, pulled my suitcase out. There was a bag in there full of sweaty gym clothes. Right. And there was a bag in there with my jiu-jitsu training stuff because I had some work to do with the charity that I'm an ambassador for on the Saturday morning. So someone was obviously watching me as I closed the boot, and I pulled the parcel shelf over. And all my windows are tinted as well. So you'd have to walk up to my car, press your face against the glass, look in, see the parcel shelves there, think that there's something valuable in there, or have seen something in there that you think is valuable. Yeah. And then smash my window and grab it. Yeah. Now, after all the speaking with the police and the staff and everything, I actually got the stuff back. I got it back the next day. But I pulled up at the hotel at 5:45 in the evening, And the lady that found my stuff around the corner from the hotel at the back entrance to our house found it at 8:30 at night. So it was like 2.5 hours between me arriving at the hotel to her finding my stuff.
Right.
So someone was obviously watching, and they just, as soon as I went in the hotel, they probably ran up there, smashed it. But I didn't know about it till the next morning.
And the cameras weren't working, or was that?
There were 6 disabled spots.
Right.
Out of the 3 cameras, one of them was focused on one disabled spot. It saw the bonnet of my car, and that was it. And then after 7 o'clock at night, the quality is so bad that you couldn't see anything anyway. It would be inadmissible as evidence because it's just too blurry and pixelated.
Yeah.
So, it's just, I guess they just tick a box to say, yeah, we've got security. And it's really terrible.
So did you get them back because this lady saw the publicity around it, or was it?
Yeah, because she said she saw it on my Facebook.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which shows the power of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I went out and put it on all my social media channels. Because the thing is, the jiu-jitsu kit, a couple £100. The sweaty gym kit, £2.50.
Yeah.
But in the bag were a set of my legs.
Right.
And that's the legs that I used to go to the beach, go in the ocean, do housework, train CrossFitting.
Yeah.
They're completely useless to anybody in the world except for me. So to me, they're extremely valuable, which is why I put it on social media, because I wanted them back. And she must have saw that and then saw this bag full of bizarre, sweaty stuff.
Yeah.
And she brought it back. She brought it back. I came out of London that night. She had emailed me and DM'd me. And so I DM'd her back when I was in the Uber on the way out. And then she came and meet me about 9 o'clock at night at the hotel.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's a really good outcome, isn't it? And quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool.
Thankfully.
Yeah, thankfully.
I talked to a friend the other day, and he said to ask you, and I deliberately didn't look this up, a gumpathon. Now, I'm guessing it's some sort of endurance thing, or?
Yeah, Gump as in forest.
Right.
So it was a run back in 2010 from New York to LA, 3,563 miles.
Oh my goodness.
Over 3.5 months, I think it took, as part of a team.
Wow.
There was a team of, I think it was 8 of us.
Was it?
Literally turned up in New York and ran across America to LA in 3.5 months. It was a wild ride.
I bet it was.
It was, and I've got so many stories.
Yeah.
From that, it's funny. I think a lot of people do, but you build up a picture in your mind of maybe what America's like because of movies and films and growing up, and then you get a picture of what it's probably not like. But when you're actually there, it's very different. I guess like any country, it's got its good points and its bad points. But I remember being outside the White House one day, and just by coincidence, the president flew in a helicopter. I think it was
Obama.
I think it was, back in 2010, and that was really cool. And it's Washington, it's affluent, people have got money and they're getting on with their lives. And because we were running across America, it's very, very slow. We'd someone would be running, and we'd have safety vehicles and stuff like that. So it's probably about 2 days after that, and we hadn't gone far, maybe 45, 50 miles. But the next minute, you find yourself in the middle of nowhere, almost like the movie Deliverance.
Yeah.
And
banjos.
And this is what it was, right? So I remember I was driving the Land Rover, where one of the guys was running in front. I've been about 2 miles an hour, and I see this house out in this forest, and like the roof's bowed in, and there's a huge hole in this roof, and there was literally a rocking chair on a porch.
Oh.
And I was just daydreaming, driving slowly, thinking, I wonder what the family that used to live in that house were like. Yeah. Emphasis on the word used to live in the house. Then the front door opens, and the family came out, and I'm like, there's no way that someone lived there. Like 2 days ago, I'm in Washington, like hundreds of millions of dollars going around, and then I'm here, and this family are living in poverty with a big hole in their roof in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, I didn't think that existed. I thought it was just in movies.
You're right, though, aren't you?
It was crazy.
We've all got that impression of it, haven't we? Because like you said,
Vegas, New York,
exactly,
big and bright,
fast, and 8 lanes of traffic, and big houses.
People still living in extreme poverty in parts of the place.
It is that have and have nots, isn't it? Yeah. I was in Atlanta last year, and luckily this lady who was driving an Uber said to me, where you're from, Norris, and she was asking me about what do I know as a white European about Black history? And so I said some of the things I knew, and with that she went, "That's fantastic." She said, "Shall I take you around and show you, Atlanta?" I went, yeah, okay, that'd be great. So she took me to Martin Luther King's house. We went to the church. It was incredible, honestly. Nice. She told me not to get out. She said, just I'll take you around on it. Didn't charge me anything for it. And but the one thing she showed me which really stood out, which echoes what you're just saying, is that definite sort of division between the haves and the have-nots. And I remember, and I wish I took a photo of it, where we stopped in this traffic, and it was under a bridge, a railway bridge. And there was sadly, a load of people sat there underneath, obviously homeless. You could see drugs being used and all the rest of it. And there was this gap in between the tunnel and this other building. And right behind it, I could see like one of the tallest buildings in Atlanta, all shiny and bright. And it was that contradiction between the two, And I know, like I said, we get an impression of America because we've grown up seeing it on television, haven't we? But as with any sort of major city or any major country, there's definitely a huge gap in that. And I guess that's what we as community and people involved in what we do, and we can give things back and help. We're all duty bound to do those things, aren't we? Because it's not just about being in business and making money and doing all those things. Because life's a bit more than that, and that's why it's about legacies, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Yeah.
But America, did you enjoy it there? Because I
love
America.
it. I love it. I love it over there.
The mentality there as well is let's get up and go, isn't it?
I go back as often as I can. You know what I mean? For various different reasons. I was in Texas last year, over there a charity gala with another organisation involved in jiu-jitsu. I love it, mate. I got actually taught to ride a horse. I didn't know who this guy was, right? Have you heard of a guy called Taylor Sheridan?
No.
So there's a TV show called Yellowstone.
Oh yeah.
Right. So he's in. I'd never watched it.
Right.
And anyway, I'm on this ranch apparently where they film it.
Yeah, it's Kevin Costner, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's in that. Yeah.
And all these people are telling me this. That there's a type of horse riding called cutting. Do you know what that is?
No.
Do you know how you get a sheepdog? You train it to round up sheep.
Yeah.
Well, because America, the land's so vast, they do that, but with horses. So you got this horse go along, and then it's like, oof, like turning on a sixpence. Wow. And so I didn't go fast, but they were teaching me this. And then this guy turned up, and he was like 55, but jacked and tanned. Yeah. And I'm like, who's this dude? Yeah. And he's apparently super famous in America, but he taught me how to ride a horse.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like,
what a great experience.
Yeah, I was like, I Googled him when I got back and then started watching that Yellowstone. But what a nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool.
What time of year did you go there? Because they say don't go in the summer, don't they, to Texas?
It was hot.
It's blistering, isn't it?
It was probably, it was September, beginning of September, I think. But it was still really hot.
Still really hot.
Yeah, really hot. Yeah. But
I
love it.
They I don't know, they've got, I know it's a sweeping statement, but generally a real up and at 'em approach to life, haven't they? And it's the old cliche, where we say if you're doing well in the UK, sometimes people won't be quite as positive about it. Whereas over there, it's like, can we do better? Well done, and and push on. But I love the States. It's a great place.
One of the things that's great about it, and this run was what really highlighted it for me, was that 1 minute you're like in the Appalachian Mountains, and you're enjoying all that, and there's the altitude, and you can be in another state. Snowing, and then you're in a desert. Do you know what I mean? You got all like the climates and everything. You just go from state to state to state. You can experience the whole lot as you go across. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Real variety of geography, But yeah, the Gumpathon. This guy just threw it at me, and I said, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
But, So who, apart from obviously Becky and your children, who inspires you? What person or thing drives you on, or is it just something intrinsic in you?
No, I mean, it depends in what area of my life I'm looking at. Like I think David Goggins is great. Like his mindset and just everything about him, his story. I just think it's phenomenal, and he's 49 years old now. I just watched an Instagram video of him getting fluid drained out of his knees after another 101 mile run or something. Wow. Guy's nuts, but I like that mindset. That it is extreme, but the no excuses mindset. I'm just going to do it anyway. I like that. And then, in business, it would be other people. And then maybe as a parent, it's someone else. I just look to different people in different areas, people that I see. And it changes, doesn't it, over time?
It does, yeah.
Something might come up on your radar. You see someone you think's a really good dad, and you start watching them for a little bit and trying to copy or emulate and be like them in that area.
Yeah.
So it changes all the time. I'm constantly looking for other people to inspire me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I think you're right. You do pick up little bits off different people, don't you? Different like different areas of life, and I like all that. Going back, you mentioned David Goggins there again. There was a weird thing about a year ago. My lad sent me a message, and he went, "Dad, have you seen this guy called David Goggins?" And I said, "Yeah, I have, son." I said, "Do you mean this guy?" And I sent him a picture back, and it was me with David Goggins.
Yeah.
And he went, "How comes you've never mentioned it?" I said, "Well, you weren't interested before, really, because you're a young lad and all that." But it's good that people have got role models to look up to, and especially younger generation, I think, because we all need heroes in some way, don't we? Heroes and heroines, and they come in different shapes and forms, don't they? And it's good that people can see there is light at the end of the tunnel with things. And obviously, you've spoken before about what happened and what changed your life forever, but I guess you view it as a real positive now, don't you? Because your life is, it's taken you down a different path. And
yeah, I mean, I try not to think too much about what would have been. You know what I mean? If my career plan had gone to plan and this hadn't happened, I'm just kind of grateful for where life is. You know what I mean? Because I do get to do some cool stuff. I met David as well.
yeah,
And I'm at the Arnold Festival next weekend, so I'm probably going to meet some other cool people.
that'd be great.
I just got loads of cool stuff going on all the time. Do you know what I mean? And I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. Again, that's something you hear in the States a lot. People with gratitude, isn't it? They talk about that a lot. For wherever they are in life, they're grateful for what they have. But I guess if you could change anything in terms of where your life is now, what would that be? Would it be to try and get some more time back? Would it be to be more locally based, or something like that? Something quite simple, but because you're very busy, aren't you? Very busy man.
No, I don't know if I would change anything. Things always end up working out in the end, don't they? There's been some rough times, but again, you go back to what we said about resilience, where you just keep going. I think sometimes if you do that, well, most times if you do that, then things just work out in the end. You know what I mean? And I am super busy, and sometimes it does get super stressful, but that's forced me to do things like hire a VA and try and systemize a lot of the stuff I do in my life and outsource it to other people. You know what I mean? And try and be more productive, more efficient, so I can take on more and do more, and get mentors in areas of my life where I feel I'm lacking, so I can improve them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It all works out in the end.
Do you know what? It's really interesting when you talk about that, mentors in different areas of your life. It's one of those things you see quite often where if you were in a sports team, you'd have different coaches for different aspects.
Exactly.
Of it. But we don't do that in our lives, do we? You
No.
know, whether that's finance or whatever it is, whatever you're weak on in your everyday life. I mean, lots of people do it for health and fitness, I guess, don't they? With gym instructors and things like that. But it's good you say that you wouldn't change anything now where you are.
Yeah.
That's a really positive thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's brought me here, and it's quite exciting. I think the path I'm on, I get some really cool opportunities, meet some really cool people. It's taken me a while to kind of develop the mindset to capitalise on them. I don't know if it's being military or being from a small city like Plymouth, but sometimes you get a bit of imposter syndrome and think, what am I doing in this room with these people? And then someone might offer you an opportunity and you're like, there's no way I could do that. But you just got to, it's like jumping out of a plane and building your parachute on the way down. Sometimes you just got to go, I'll do that, and just figure it out as you go.
Yeah,
and
just embrace it.
I seem to be doing that a lot more frequently lately. Just
Yeah.
saying yes to things with no clue how I'm going to be able to achieve it, with no knowledge, and then just forcing myself to learn stuff.
Yeah.
Particularly as an entrepreneur.
Oh yeah. And there's always challenges that come at your left field, and opportunities, like you said. But it is, I think, was it Branson who said it about just say yes and then work out how to do it, afterwards, whatever comes along, and it's a great mentality, isn't it?
Yeah. Scary.
Yes.
Scary,
it can be.
Great,
it can be. So what's the future looking like for you, Mark? What do you want to do more of?
So I've spent the last 15 years raising money for charity and I mean this in a polite way, like giving up my time for nothing, traveling all over the place. I've spent thousands of hours helping and supporting people. You know, I've got some videos I've got to make, some DMs I've got to answer about people that are struggling with things. But I turned 40 last year, and when I was sat down at home this Christmas planning out the next year, I decided that actually the next 10 years are going to be dedicated towards business, entrepreneurship, and money. And that's taken me a long time to be able to say that, because it felt very uncomfortable. But now I want to take everything I've done, everything I've learned, everyone I've met, and figure out a way to turn that into a vehicle to earn an income for my family. But then, like you said, and like you're about, then give back. Because one of the things actually that made me feel more comfortable with talking about money and business is the good that you can do with it. You know, you can if you earn a lot of money, you can do a lot of good work, right?
Yeah.
So the next 10 years of my life are going to be all about that.
Good for you, because I think it's a dirty word sometimes, money, isn't it? But you've done the hard yards, you know. You've done all these things, like you said, you know, and helped a lot of people. But sometimes, well, there comes a point where you need the rewards back for you, don't you?
Yeah.
Reap what you sow and all that sort of stuff. And no, I think great, embrace it, because it's really important. Yeah. None of us can survive without, you know, commercial activities, can we? No. We're exactly the same as you know, and I think you can be a good influence in you know, your own community or a bigger sort of audience. But no, I think you're doing exactly the right thing.
And I'm going to try and do it in a way that as I'm doing it, it helps. So more books, membership sites, social media content, coaching, mentoring, that kind of stuff. But instead of doing it all for nothing, this time I figure out a way to earn from it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting you took the 10-year view as well, because people don't look that long term normally, do they? They look quite short, you know, 3 or 5 years. But no, you're coming into the peak of your years, aren't you? You know, certainly my 40s were a great period. You know, so
still full of energy and enthusiasm.
Yeah, good for you.
Good to go.
Yeah. One last thing I'd like to finish on is I recall seeing a while back they were going to make a film of your life, weren't they?
They were.
The journey you've been on, and I know COVID got in the way and all the rest of it. But is that still in the pipeline? Is that something potentially, or not sure?
So I've turned that off. You know, and I'm sure it would have been great, but we got 4 years down the line and we weren't really any further forward. And I just feel, I'm going to get a bit spiritual now, but I feel like if you let go of some things and free up some space in your life, the universe will fill it with something better. So I'm not saying that was bad, but in my gut, it wasn't going where I wanted it to go. And so I just thought, well, I'm going to let this go and let the universe fill it with something better, which is going to fulfill me and produce something of better quality at the end, you know?
Yeah, so that's a great philosophy. It's that law of attraction thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I just think sometimes you're so busy and your life's so full that, you know, the universe says, no more for you, greedy, you've got too much going on. But when you go, right, this is a hard decision, but I'm going to turn that off now because I don't feel it's the right thing. And then it goes, haha, space, have this reward. Yeah. You know, and it throws something better in there. So fingers crossed, we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, we could have talked for hours. I think there's about 50 subjects I could have gone down, and I wanted to do something a little bit different.
Let's do a part 2.
Yeah, do a part 2. Yeah. The revenge. A bit like The Matrix, part 2.
Yeah, part 2 of The Matrix. The Mark tricks.
Yeah, the Mark. I like that. It's got a ring to it. I have to trademark it. Do you know any lawyers?
I might.
You might do. But thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And,
my pleasure, mate.
You know, from my heart, you are top man.
Thank you, mate. You too.
I don't know if you've seen, but on task 10, I cried. I cried because I was so disappointed that I'd let myself down. I'd got to the last hurdle and just felt like I'd let myself down. So I'm in the boardroom, you know, I'm explaining to Lord Sugar, but I'd already had like this nerves whenever I'd speak sort of thing. Linda Plant then says to me, so in task 10, you cried. And I was like, yeah, I did. And she was like, so what are you going to do in business when things aren't going to go right? You're going to cry? I was like, oh my God, I'm going to cry right now. Literally, I couldn't feel it.